hear me? Thank you so much for joining me this evening for the CAIR-Oklahoma volunteer training. Um, Again, I have posted a couple of questions in the chat box. If you look on your control panel, you'll see a little drop down that says chat. If you have any questions over the course of this training, feel free to enter them into this chat box and I will see them and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm very glad that you've all chosen to join me for this webinar. So I want to give a couple more minutes to see if there's any more attendees that are going to join us, and then we will go ahead and get started. I will try not to take too much of your time because I know that it is a weeknight and everyone else has stuff to do. So give me just a couple more minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, thank you all for your patience. Good evening and welcome to the CAIR-Oklahoma Volunteer Training again. I am your host. I am Veronica Leisure, the Civil Rights Director for CAIR-Oklahoma, which is the Oklahoma chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Very quickly, I'm going to go over the GoToWebinar, how this works. You are seeing, or you should be seeing, my presentation on your screen. You also should have a GoToWebinar control panel that gives you access to the handouts that I've provided, your ability to ask questions, your ability to chat with me if you have any other questions throughout the presentation. So please don't hesitate to take advantage of that. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll also provide you with my contact information and how to reach me or any of the other CAIR-Oklahoma staff members. So you should be able to communicate with us, give us your feedback on this webinar or any other of our projects or presentations that you happen to join us for. So we'll go ahead and get started. What we're going to cover today is the introduction to some common Islamic religious practices that you might encounter as you work with CAIR-Oklahoma. We'll talk about the work of CAIR-Oklahoma as a nonprofit organization and some of the functions that we provide for the Oklahoma community. We'll talk about some ways that individuals can get involved with our organization and with our mission, the ways that you can help support the state's only full-time Muslim civil rights advocacy organization. We'll talk about also some of the specific skills-based volunteers that we look for and ways that you can contribute your expertise and your energy in the most productive way. And then I'll provide you with plenty of contact information and information on how to reach me or any of the other CAIR-Oklahoma team members that you should want to talk to. So we'll go ahead and get started with our introduction to some Islamic religious practices. Islam 101, this is what I like to call this section of the presentation. These are some of the major tenets of the Islamic faith. Primarily, we're talking about belief in one God or monotheism. In Islam, there's a belief in prophets as carriers of the word of God to humanity. Muslims believe in the Prophet Muhammad as the final messenger of God, and you'll see after the end of Muhammad's name that peace be upon him in parentheses is a way to honor him as the final prophet, final messenger of the word of God, bringing that to humanity. Muslims also believe in the Quran as the word of God as it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century of the Common Era. You also might hear the words hadith and sunnah, which are other sources of Islamic religious theology, the words and the practices of the Prophet Muhammad and his companions. What's primarily the most important thing to know is that the root of the word for both Islam, which is the name of the religion, and the word Muslim, which is a follower of the religion, is peaceful submission to the will of God. So someone who is Muslim is someone who submits peacefully to the will of God. The 5 pillars of Islam are the 5 primary things that all Muslims must adhere to as part of their faith. The first being the Shahada, which is the sincere recitation of their profession of faith, that there is but one God, that Muhammad is his messenger. There's also ritual daily prayers, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, charity towards the poor, or zakat, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan, which we will also discuss later, and then Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, which is undertaken at least once in the life of every Muslim, and we may talk about that in a little bit. So, true or false? The God worshipped by Muslims is the same God worshipped by Christians and Jewish people. Now, feel free to use the chat function or the question function to answer this question, or you can just answer it by yourself, wherever you are. But the most important thing that I want you to know about this slide is that the God worshipped by Muslims is the same God worshipped by Christians and Jewish people. In fact, the word Allah just is the Arabic word for God. Islam is one of the Abrahamic faiths, and they believe in many of the same prophets and the same figures that Christians and Jewish people do. Okay, so again, who are Muslims? There are around 1.7 billion Muslims in the world, or around 23% of the global population. And there are between 3 and 5 million Muslims in the United States. However, that's less than 1% of the total U.S. population. A poll in 2010 showed that Americans think, however, that there are as many as 47.7 million Muslims in the United States, which would be around 15% of the population. In Oklahoma, we have around 35,000 Muslims, which is less than 1% of the total Oklahoma population. And here in our state, over half of American Muslims identify as Black or African American. If you look at the chart that I have here, the religious affiliations in the United States, you can kind of see how Muslims compare to other minority religions as compared to, for example, Jewish people, who represent a little bit less than 2%, and then compared to Protestants and Catholics. So which country in the world has the most Muslims? And again, feel free to use the chat function or the questions function to answer, or simply to answer wherever you are at home. The answer to this question is actually Indonesia. Indonesia has the highest percentage of Muslims, at nearly 99% of their population identifying as Muslims, as Muslim. So while the common stereotype about Islam and Muslims might be that they predominantly live in the Middle East and identify as Arab, we actually see many, many, many Muslims in the United States coming from Southeast Asia and the Asiatic regions. Islam in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has mosques and Islamic centers all around the state, and they are very diverse places full of a whole lot of different viewpoints, backgrounds, ethnicities, languages, and perspectives. So there are 5 mosques in the Oklahoma City metro area. There's one in Tulsa, there's one in Ardmore, Stillwater, and Lawton. In the Islamic Society of Tulsa alone, there are over 70 different nationalities represented and 3 Native American tribes among its members. In ISGOC, or the Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, there are over 75 nationalities represented. So whenever you go to the mosque, you can see the vast diversity of the Muslim community in our state. So have you ever visited a mosque or Islamic community center? And I'm going to select this poll, which should give you the ability to answer this question on your screen. Feel free to answer here, or to just simply answer wherever you are. Okay, awesome. So it looks like 67% of tonight's attendees have attended a mosque or a Islamic center, which is awesome. That means that you have taken one of the first steps towards inclusivity and diversity in our state. So what to expect at a CAIR-Oklahoma event with regards to prayers? There are 5 daily prayers that Muslims must perform. They happen at dawn, noon, afternoon, dusk, and nighttime. Before prayer, you'll hear the call to prayer, which is if you've ever seen, shows that are set in the Middle East, it is simply a voice reciting that it is time for people to come to pray, to remind them of the blessings and the benefits that prayer brings to their life, and that it's time for the community to come together to share this connection to God. Prayers are always performed facing Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia. And there are physical components to prayer, which include bending over, prostrating oneself, and placing one's forehead on the ground. And it's also preceded by ritual washing, so that one approaches prayer with both a clean and purified mind and a clean and purified body. So prayer, it really serves this function of reminding Muslims during the day of their connection to God, their connection to their faith, and their connection to their community. It's a very important part of the day. So things to avoid if you're ever at a CAIR-Oklahoma event where prayers are being performed. Don't interrupt people who are praying. It usually only takes a few minutes, and people will be free to speak with you again as soon as they've completed their prayers. You might see people praying on prayer rugs, and it's really important to remember, don't step on those. Like, treat those with respect, because those are very important special items to individuals. And also, part of the prayer involves placing one's forehead onto the ground. And so many Muslims like to use particular prayer rugs that are clean and that haven't been stepped on with people's shoes. Can you imagine if you wanted to put your face on the ground and it is the same piece of ground that everyone has been stepping on with their shoes all day, right? So be respectful of the prayer space and try not to use your shoes, and try to avoid stepping on that. And then, of course, avoid walking or standing in front of people who are praying, because they are required to face Mecca while they are performing their prayers. So which direction is Mecca from where you are? And again, feel free to use the chats or the questions to answer, or just to answer from wherever you are. Other things that you might expect, you might see at a CAIR-Oklahoma event with regards to gender relations are really important. So how many of you, I'm sure you've all heard the word hijab. What hijab is, it means not just the physical piece of cloth, but it also means the concept of covering oneself, the concept of physical modesty. So many women in the Muslim community choose to wear a hijab, or a loose covering, over their head, neck, and chest. There are so many different styles of hijab depending on culture and preference. Some women choose to wear a hijab only during prayer. Other women choose to wear it when they're in public and then take it off when they're at home. Some women choose also to cover their arms and legs completely, or to wear long skirts rather than pants. Some women wear long, loose-fitting clothing like abayas. And this is, there are lots of individual ways that women in the Muslim community express modesty and express their relationship to their faith. The important thing to remember is that we respect their choices, that there is no one right way. There are many different ways that women profess their faith. And it's important to be respectful of all that diversity and all of those different choices that you might see. In most cases, there are separate prayer spaces for men and women. The reason being that part of the prayer involves bending over, and most women feel more comfortable doing that not in front of a large group of men. There we go, okay. Another thing that's important to remember is that men's clothing and their physical appearance may also be different. Now, Islam doesn't just command that women dress with modesty. It also commands men to dress and to behave with modesty. So some members of the Muslim community may prefer to avoid physical contact between members of different genders. And again, it varies according to personal preference and personal practice. So things to keep in mind are that some Muslims may prefer not to hug or to shake hands with members of different genders. It's always best just to wait until the other person offers first before you just reach out to someone, just to make sure that you're respecting other people's preferences. Another important thing to know is that if you see a woman's hijab being pulled or tugged off, it's a very serious act of harassment. It's not just an attack on an individual, that's an attack on someone's faith and someone's identity and their religion. So if you see that happening, act to shield her while you get her to a safe place. And remember that that is a very serious act of harassment and discrimination that deserves to be addressed. If you are invited to a mosque or an Islamic community center and you're a woman, it's not necessary that you cover your head, although you may do so out of respect. There will be very many women there who are happy to help you learn how to tie a hijab or how to wear a scarf if you ask for that kind of assistance. It's preferred that you dress conservatively, so the clothes that you might wear to your church or your religious house of worship, but it's not required. Again, it just varies according to individuals' personal preferences. Muslim women practice their faith in many diverse ways, so it's important that we respect their choices. So there's a true or false question here. Only women have to dress modestly in Islam. And again, feel free to use the chat function or ask questions about this. But the answer to this question is actually that's false. Both women and men are commanded to dress and to behave with modesty in the religion. Other things that you might expect at a CAIR-Oklahoma event are some dietary restrictions. You might have heard of halal foods versus haram foods. So the word haram simply means something that is forbidden. Food and drinks that are considered haram are things like pork and pork byproducts, so obviously pork and bacon, anything that's prepared with lard, with pig fat is going to be considered haram. Anything that's prepared with alcohol, so things like wine sauce, anything that's been like penne alla vodka. Most Muslims don't drink alcohol. Additionally, foods that contain gelatin, because gelatin is a pork byproduct, and then things that are blood byproducts. So unfortunately, CAIR-OK events are going to be dry events, so you'll have to find another time to enjoy your cocktail or your glass of wine. On the other hand, you have foods that are permissible or halal. That includes pretty much everything else. Milk and honey, seafood, vegetables, other meat like beef and chicken are okay. Basically, there's tons of different foods that are halal that you'll be able to enjoy at our events where we're serving food. So what are some of your favorite foods that you enjoy that are halal? In particular, some of my favorite foods are hummus and baba ganoush. Okay, other things that you might see at a CAIR-Oklahoma event. Ramadan. Ramadan occurs during the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. Now, the lunar calendar doesn't always match up exactly with the Gregorian calendar, so the dates of Ramadan change year by year. During Ramadan, Muslims practice a period of fasting. That means no eating, no drinking, including water, no smoking, nor harsh language, and just a general period of restraint and discipline, and that's practiced from sunup to sundown. Fast is broken when the sun goes down by a meal called iftar. We usually try to host at least one iftar celebration with CAIR-Oklahoma friends and family and elected officials, so stay tuned for more information on the iftar that we have planned for this year's Ramadan. Ramadan is also marked by increased charity and self-discipline and reading of the Quran, and it's really a time for the whole Muslim community to reflect on the blessings that they have, to reflect on those in their community who perhaps are less fortunate, and to reconnect with their faith kind of year by year. People who are exempt from the month-long fast are people who are ill, traveling, very elderly, who are pregnant, are breastfeeding, diabetic. So it's, obviously it's not at risk of your health, but very many people do generally choose to practice Ramadan fast. And even young children will sometimes practice by fasting for all or part of the day to prepare them for their adult obligations to fast. Important Muslim holidays are Eid al-Fitr, which is at the end of the month of Ramadan. Then we have Eid al-Adha, which is the end of the period of Hajj. And then Hijrah, or the Islamic New Year. So, how would you greet your Muslim friends on the holidays? The answer is Eid Mubarak, which means blessed Eid. So when you know that it is an Eid holiday and you happen to see one of your Muslim friends, you can tell them Eid Mubarak, and that will show them that you are wishing them a happy and blessed holiday. So we'll kind of review, and I'd like for those of you who are watching at home to try and practice some of these words and try to remember. So what does these words mean? Haram, Allah, hijab, Ramadan, mosque or masjid, and imam. If you remember, haram is food or food products that are prohibited by the religion. If you'll remember, Allah is simply the Arabic word for God, and it is the same God that Muslims and that Christians and Jewish people worship. Hijab is the act of covering oneself with a scarf, covering oneself modestly, and it's also the physical piece of cloth. Ramadan is the holy month of fasting that occurs during the 9th month of the Islamic lunar year. A mosque or masjid is a house of worship, and the imam is the religious and spiritual leader of the Muslim community. So this is the fun part. Meet your CAIR-Oklahoma civil rights team. Here is the CAIR-Oklahoma main staff. We have Adam Soltani, our fearless leader and executive director. We have Anna Facci, who started out as our operations and events coordinator and recently transitioned into the government affairs director. And she has been working very hard on developing our government affairs department in the past few months. And then myself, Veronica Leisure, the civil rights director, and I manage the civil rights department of this organization. Some little fun trivia about each of us. Adam's favorite movie of all time is Remember the Titans. And when I asked him what his favorite movie was to put this in the slideshow, he did not have to hesitate. He just knew immediately that was his favorite. Something interesting about Anna Facci is that her current hair color is purple. So if you happen to see her soon, be sure and compliment her on her lovely hair. And something interesting about me is that my favorite food is potato chips. So have you met any of the CAIR staff? Who is your favorite? And I think I've got another poll for us here. Yeah. How about, have you ever attended a CAIR-Oklahoma event before? Okay, awesome. It looks like we've got a good mix tonight. For those of you who have attended a CAIR-Oklahoma event before, we're really happy. We're really happy to have you back. For those of you who are not, we're really hoping that you'll join us for one of our upcoming events. We've got lots of exciting things on the calendar this year, and we would love to meet you face to face. So who's your favorite CAIR-Oklahoma staff? Again, feel free to use the chat or the questions box to let me know that I am your favorite CAIR-Oklahoma staff member. Just kidding. You have a choice there. Other members of the CAIR-Oklahoma family that we've got this spring are Shala Fazili, who is our 2017 Community Outreach Fellow. You'll see a lot of her. Our legal interns, Tristan Davis and Olivia Glasner, who are at OU law students, and they assist me in the Civil Rights Department. And then we have our government affairs interns, Maury Turner and Sana Mesita. And an interesting thing about Shala is that her favorite chocolate is Ferrero Rocher. So if you ever need to get her a present for anything, that's probably the best thing to get her. More about us. We are a grassroots civil rights and advocacy group. Many of the things that we do are civil rights advocacy, so fighting for people who have been victims of discrimination or harassment, educational outreach, teaching the non-Muslim community about the reality of Islam and Muslims in Oklahoma, and then also teaching the Muslim community about their rights and their obligations as Oklahoma citizens. We have media relations, we write op-eds, we do TV interviews, and we basically try to spend a lot of time getting our message out there as much as possible. And now we have a full-time government affairs department that does government and public policy research, connecting with our lawmakers to help them understand their Muslim constituents. The Oklahoma chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations was established in 2006. It serves the entire state through the Oklahoma City office, and we are currently the only full-time Muslim civil rights organization in Oklahoma. The CAIR mission is to be a leading advocate for justice and mutual understanding. We enhance the understanding of Islam, promote justice, and empower American Muslims. So, why organizations like CAIR-Oklahoma are so important? Because there are tons of misconceptions and tons of stereotypes, negative stereotypes out there about Islam and Muslims that we need to work on dispelling. So, for example, over 1/3 of the country believes that Muslims should be barred for running for president, and over half say that they would not be willing to vote for a Muslim president. A 2001 Time report showed that 28% of voters don't believe that Muslims should be eligible to sit on the Supreme Court. Almost half of Americans in the same report believe that Islam is at odds with American values. 34% of Americans think that Muslims in the United States increase the likelihood of a terrorist attack, despite the fact that the current profile of the most dangerous terrorists in the United States for the past 20 years has not been a Muslim. 25% of people believe that Muslims make America a more dangerous place to live. 28% would not be okay with a mosque in their area. And really importantly, fewer than 40% of Americans say that they actually know a Muslim. So I have another poll for us here. Do you have any friends who are Muslim? We've got 60% of people voting. Let's see if we can get those last couple. Okay, awesome. It looks like the vast majority of people here tonight do have friends who are Muslim. That's really great. That makes me feel really happy, because one of the best things that people can do to dispel these stereotypes and to reveal the truth about Islam and Muslims in Oklahoma is simply to get to know people who are Muslim. One of the consequences of people who don't know Muslims and people who do hold these stereotypical beliefs about Islam and Muslims in Oklahoma are some of these examples of things that have happened in our state. In April 2015, the Islamic Society of Edmond was vandalized with pieces of pork left in the parking lot and at the entrance of the mosque. The Islamic Society of Stillwater has had its windows shot out multiple times. In May of 2016, a Bangladeshi clerk in Savannah, Oklahoma, was violently stabbed by an attacker who came in and called him a dirty terrorist. In June 2016, Representative Pat Ownby posted on Facebook that Islam is not a religion subject to First Amendment protection, and then calling for a final solution, which are some chilling words. We had a report just after the election of a woman who was told to go the H back to Saudi Arabia in a parking lot at Walmart. When she reported this, she was very perplexed. She said, "I'm not from Saudi Arabia. I've never been to Saudi Arabia." And then one of the most tragic cases that's ever happened in Oklahoma is Lebanese-American Khalid Jabara was murdered last year by his neighbor after a year of anti-Muslim and anti-Arab threats, and his family is still grieving his loss. Some other egregious examples of Islamophobia in our state: a gun range and survival gear store out in Oktaha, Oklahoma, has declared that it is a Muslim-free zone and has refused service to a Muslim American Army reservist who attempted to go and shoot at their shooting range. When CAIR-Oklahoma announced our intentions to march in the 2015 Veterans Day Parade, there were so many threats on social media that include things like someone should get on the roof and start shooting at people, and others who threatened to come and throw bacon on participants. The threats got so serious that the local Islamic school, who had been planning to bring their kids to participate in the parade, had to withdraw because they were afraid for their safety. In Edmond, a family in 2015 was terrorized as they tried to enjoy their pre-dawn Ramadan meal by a man who came up to their table in front of their small children and threatened to rip those effing hijabs off, and threatened physical violence against them. And then on October 25th, 2016, Representative John Bennett out of Sallisaw held a public hearing at our state's capital in which he called Adam Soltani and Imam Imadin Shasi terrorists, called the CAIR-Oklahoma staff suit-wearing jihadis, and then promised that he was going to try and kick CAIR-Oklahoma out of Oklahoma. So, as you can see, we have a problem with Islamophobia in this state, and that's why the work of CAIR-Oklahoma and people like you is so important. So, now that we've talked about why our work is important, let's talk about what the things that you can actually do to get involved and combat Islamophobia in Oklahoma and to protect your Muslim friends. So getting involved means acting locally and thinking globally. Remember, rallies and protests are so important, but there's also work to be done that isn't as exciting. Things like stuffing mailers, knocking on doors, and helping out at events are a huge part of the mission and are a huge way to help keep our operation running smoothly. While national politics can feel overwhelming, sometimes the best way to make a difference is right here in your own home state. No matter what your age or your skill set is, you definitely have something to offer that can help improve our Oklahoma community. But then we also have to think globally. We remember that issues like racism, Islamophobia, and intolerance don't just come out of nowhere. We all absorb stereotypes and negative messaging from our environment. We live in a country that has deeply racist values embedded in it, and it's really important for us to be aware of our own implicit biases so that we can combat some of the ways that racism and stereotypes negatively affect our friends. Remember that there are always opportunities to learn from other people. Education is a lifelong process. No one expects you to know everything. Just by taking a step, like attending a CAIR-Oklahoma event and doing this volunteer training, shows that you're willing to learn and that you are willing to absorb more information as part of your lifelong education. We realize at CAIR-Oklahoma that everyone's struggles are deeply interconnected and that the threat to the rights of one marginalized group is a threat to the rights of everyone. We learn and we encourage you to respect the ways that oppression and privilege intersect in your life and think of ways that you can learn how to empower everyone that you encounter. Where volunteers are deeply needed right now are in two parts of our operations. One is events. So in past events, in past years, the CAIR-Oklahoma volunteer team has mostly been made up of a very dedicated group of young Muslim community members who are helping us to set up, execute, and take down events. But this year, we want all of our Muslim community members to be able to fully enjoy the events that we are putting on for them. So that means we're calling on volunteers that are not from the Muslim community to come in and help us out at events so that the Muslim community can focus on enjoying themselves and enjoying the program we've put together. This Saturday, we have the 11th annual CAIR-Oklahoma Awards Banquet, where we will honor 2 outstanding Muslims from the Oklahoma community, and we'll also enjoy a keynote from Arslan Iftikhar, who's a fantastic author and activist, and entertainment from comedian Amr Zar. So if you would like to volunteer at the CAIR-Oklahoma banquet, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to have you there, and it's still not too late to sign up to volunteer. Another area where we need volunteers is operations. Everything from stuffing envelopes to helping organize our office to setting up tables at the mosque or at other programs, we can always use hands-on helpers who are willing to learn about our organization and spread this knowledge to others. There's only 3 of us who work here full-time, so we can't be everywhere. So if you know of a place where CAIR-Oklahoma should be represented and we are not able to do it, we can train you to become a CAIR-Oklahoma representative for us in your community so that you can have our materials and you can do these presentations and these trainings for your own friends and family. Networking is a vital part of the mission of CAIR-Oklahoma, just like any other nonprofit or social justice organization in Oklahoma. So if you've got these connections to other organizations or meetings that we might be missing, please let us know so that we can make those connections and you can help us do that. Another important way is getting involved. Engage with your community and your government. Remember that elected officials work for you. Your taxes pay their salary. Connect with them and let them know that you don't support the use of their platform for bigotry. Write letters to your lawmakers explaining the needs of your community. Draw them a picture of what your community actually looks like. And then challenge those leaders who are using their platform to exploit fear and hate and prejudice against Muslims. Make sure that the legislative body of Oklahoma actually represents our country, our community, and our state by voting, making sure that you are electing people who do represent you and your interests. Other ways to get involved are not being passive on media. So many negative images and so many negative stereotypes are perpetuated by damaging media presentation. There's so much more to Islam than you see on TV. So question those negative images you see on your screens. Who is promoting them and what's their agenda? If you see Islamophobia in the media, act on it. You can record it and report it to your local CAIR office. We have a convenient reporting form, cairoklahoma.com/report. Contact the media outlet with your concerns. Let them know that you don't think that's a responsible use of airtime to promote negative images and stereotypes about the Muslim community. Be part of actively constructing your own narrative of yourself and your community. So think of some ways that negative stereotypes have hurt you and your community. This chart that you can see right here is that between June and February 2015, one-on-one interviews on some of the top news stations were overwhelmingly dominated by white Republican men. Now, while white Republican men do have perspectives it's important to understand, I think we can all agree that there are tons more perspectives out there that need to be heard. So if you feel like media is not telling your story accurately, if you feel like negative stereotypes are being perpetuated and it's damaging you and your friends and your family, act on that. Let's talk really quick about skills-based volunteering. These are some ways that people who have particular expertise or experience can get involved, and these are skills that we can definitely utilize. So graphic designers, if you have experience with designing posters, flyers, t-shirts, mugs, other promotional swag, if you can help us keep our designs up to date and fresh and interesting, keeping us appealing to a wide variety of audiences, hit us up. We love to promote the work of local graphic designers, and we would love to see what you have to offer. Research and content writers, too, we need you. Are you an experienced researcher who has strong writing skills in a particular field? Technical writers like grant writers, legal writers, we really definitely need you as well. Do you have access to other researchers that can give us resources that we can use for our library? Please let us know. We would love to have you join us. Teachers, we love working with teachers. Are you good with kids and do you like working with young people? We have lots of programming for young Muslims throughout the year where we could really benefit from your expertise. Can you help us get messages like this out to a wide audience? Do you particularly love public speaking and presentations? Again, we can train you to be a CAIR-Oklahoma rep so we can bring those resources to you, to your community, and you can help us do that. Attorneys like me. Can you offer pro bono or low bono legal services to support the Civil Rights Department? I'm the only attorney at our organization, and I have no legal support staff, just interns. So if you can help out with the Civil Rights Mission, we would love to connect with you. Do you handle cases that aren't covered by our Civil Rights Department, like family or criminal law or immigration cases? I'll add you to my referral network, and I can promise you that you will definitely have clients coming from me. Do you encounter civil rights issues in your legal practice? Well, I have resources that might assist you to serve your clients in the best way. Counseling. Are you a licensed professional therapist or counselor? As I'm sure you can imagine, lots of Muslim families are struggling with anxiety and depression and other trauma as a result of the Islamophobia and some of the horrible attacks that have gone on against the community in the past few years. So if you can help our Muslim kids developing confidence and self-esteem, helping families recover from the trauma that they have undergone, we would love to call on your skills. And then our business and corporate leaders too, people who can sponsor local nonprofit organizations, do donor matching, grants for community service. We would love to see if we can connect to some of those resources from you. Do you have experience managing donors, doing funding development, other financial management? We can always use help there. Government affairs. Anna would love to call on you guys for if you have strong relationships with your local elected officials. Are you an educated voter who can help teach other people how to make their vote count? Those of you who are interested in running for public office, please understand that the CAIR-Oklahoma Government Affairs Department could be a huge resource for you. We can definitely help connect you with some of your Muslim constituents to understand their issues. Would you like to use your political voice to help support the Muslim community? We've got tons of ways that you can do that. And then, of course, data management and technology, which to me is magic. Do you know how to manage a database? Do you know what a database is? Can you help us protect our sensitive data, our client data, and organizational data to keep our organization running efficiently? Are you good with computers and networking? We definitely need your help, and I, in particular, always need your help, so please definitely hit us up if you have these skills. Basically, in any way that you find it appropriate, that you have the skills and the time and the knowledge, we definitely want you to get involved. So we're going to finish up. Here's our contact information. Take a screenshot of this. It's in the handouts that I've also provided too at the very back. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got a general info line, and then we have a website that you can see here that's a volunteer sign up. So go there, and if you have some of the special skills that we talked about, put that in the notes section. Let us know that that's something you're willing to do, and we will reach out to you to make sure you're up to date on all the opportunities to work with us. And then if you want to ever visit us in real life, we are located in Oklahoma City, kind of in the heart of the city. You can give us a call, and give any of our departments a call to set us up. And there is our mailing address if you have any other questions. So we would love to hear from any of you who haven't already met the CAIR-Oklahoma team or attended a CAIR-Oklahoma event. All right, that's all I have for you guys. Again, if you have any questions, please use the chat function or the questions box to type them in, or you can use any of the contact information that I've provided. In particular, this info@cairo.com, and let us know. We are happy to answer questions, and we're happy to connect with our community. I'll leave this up for a few minutes to see if there are any questions or any feedback, and then I will wrap up since I know that it's probably everybody has other stuff to do, and I don't want to take up too much more time. I want to be respectful of your schedule. Okay, no questions. Oh, I typed the email, the info line here. I'm going to correct it. info@ok.cair.com. I have on here info. Let me see. Okay. see if I can. In case anyone can't see the chat box, that's an @ ok.cair.com. All right, if there are no questions and no feedback, thank you for very much for joining me tonight. Feel free to reach out to me if anything comes up that I didn't answer in this presentation. Good night, and I hope to connect with all of you again sometime soon.